Thank you, Pooja and Vivek, for having me here. Now, I know there's a 10-minute time limit, so I'm going to stick to that. Can I have a clicker? Sorry. I need the clicker for that. Yeah. It says writer and survivor, but I like to think of myself as a thriver, not just as a survivor. So you have been given the book Chemical Khichdi, and one of the reasons I want to make this talk today was to really talk about the power of storytelling and how you could use a book like this in your practice, of course in your community with your family and friends who might find it useful, but also as many of you are psychology students or in the profession, how you could actually bring a lived experience like this to be helpful. So the power of storytelling. We've had a filmmaker today talk to us, but here is a beautiful line by Paulo Coelho, who says that really the power of storytelling is exactly when all the gaps, when everything else has crumbled, it's picking up the gaps. And when it comes to mental health, we have heard so many stories today about how things are crumbling. But with Chemical Khichdi and with my story today, I want to give you a story of hope. A story of hope that you can take forward in your lives perhaps, but also of the people around you. So let's start with these words, right? We've talked about mental health, but somehow we've not talked about these words today. So mad or crazy or pagal or psycho. I'm sure that these are very casual words that are used very cruelly. All of us in this room certainly would recognize that. But I'm sure there are also words that all of us would recognize that have been said about us, or we perhaps have said, right? Even though we might be professionals, we do say them casually. Now, what about if I say that these words also actually apply in my case, right? I think that perhaps for gone case, apart from that, everything else in the room actually applies to me. That I have been psychotic, I have been mad and crazy and insane, and done all these things at some point in my life. But I'm also this. I'm also a mother, I'm a writer, I've studied at these universities, I've run a company, I've written 2 books. So the question really is that how do we reconcile all of this? How do we reconcile that reality? Which is the real me? Is that the real me, the mad me? Or is this the real me, which is the sane me, right? So I want to show you some pictures of this journey. This is me at 24 when I was just about to start at Harvard. And I think this is a picture that captures my personality as an adult. Quite, fun-loving and cheerful and warm and optimistic, and a little bit hatke with the yellow sunglasses. HPS was always pretty conservative campus. And this is a picture of me that I'm very proud of when I was 28 and I was the CEO of our family's office furniture business. And we were the first company in India to take part in any global exhibition. And this was 20 years ago in a global furniture fair. And I was leading this team. So it was a huge milestone for us. It was not, taking part in an international exhibition now is not such a big deal, but 20 years ago it was a big deal. And this is a picture of my first book published in 2015, where I have profiled CEOs. Up till now, I've interviewed 100 CEOs, everyone from the Uday Kotaks of the world and the Deepak Parekhs to the younger generation startups. And finally, this is a picture of me teaching. So this story looks great, right? Like I've run a company, I've studied abroad, I've done all these things. But I'd like to share you a picture of me when I'm unwell. And this is a picture of me when I was quite manic in 2018. This was really one of the last times I was really quite manic. And I can't remember this photo being taken because I was so wrapped up in my head. There were so many thoughts and ideas in my head that was my reality. That I was totally caught up in that reality. Now I know a lot of us have ideas and we can't, sleep for days. That happens to a lot of us. But mania, as I'm sure that many of you are familiar with, is a totally different scenario where really there is the remote control of your thoughts is not in your hands. It is in somebody else's hands. It is in the chemical imbalances in the head. And you can see my sister being such a great ally for me and being and smiling, but my smile is not real and I'm trying to just keep it together. But this is what I'm like when I'm unwell. Because I have lived with bipolar disorder for over 20 years. The first incidences started when I was 24. I'm now 48. Luckily, I've been in a good place for the last 5 years, but I've had these ups and downs, and they've been pretty extreme. It's been quite a roller coaster ride. All of you will have the copy of the book which talks about it. And this is a picture when I was very down. And I think it's an important picture of depression to show that actually we don't have the luxury of sitting at home in our pajamas and crying, which we often think is the picture of depression, but also just being very quiet and withdrawn. And so you have to really understand what's going on. So I'm with my kids, but I'm not still fully engaged with them. And this is me with the book. So finally, after years and years, I always wanted to write this book. And I was having a lot of mood swings and I wasn't able to, but then finally I got a space. In the last 5 or 6 years I've been good. And so this book came out a couple of years ago. But even then I have had downs and ups. So this was a phase, a little brief part of hypermania that happened in December. So again, you can see me in the middle of the day trying to just desperately get some sleep on the sofa. And now I have learned to hack it. Everything that I've written in the book, I tried to put this in real life. I took my meds, I had therapy sessions, I cut down on my social engagements. I really was aware of what was going on and I reached out, and actually the hypomania lasted only for about a week or so and I was fine. And I would say this is me with my normal personality where I'm, just posing by the bookshelf waiting for that fashion magazine to feature me. So what I'm trying to really say is there's a difference between personality and illness. And when you see these pictures, I think that we need to craft a narrative and we need to recognize that the picture in which I'm lying on the sofa or the picture where I'm, not present fully with my kids is a time when I'm unwell. Not a time when I'm being moody or not a time when I'm being difficult, but actually a time when I'm unwell. And so we can learn to distinguish between personality and illness. So the myth that I really want to bust with the book is that you can have that you can't actually live a normal life. I want to show that you can have a normal life, you can have a family life, you can have a career, and you can actually be thriving. So what does that journey from surviving to thriving look like? So what I've talked about in the book is that there are really 3 therapies for surviving. And surviving is first the medical side of it, which I think we talked about today, going to a practitioner, having access to those resources. The second part, which I think was a beautiful statement that was said earlier, that treatment happens in the clinic, but healing happens at home. And I think that heart for me is the love therapy, is the support I got from my family in accepting this diagnosis and supporting me with it. And the third part is the lifestyle piece, which is the nutrition, the sleep, the exercise, which has been really very important. I think we all want to manage our lifestyle these days, we're very aware. But the connection between mental health and lifestyle is so strong that we really actually keep it, we need to manage it. And I'll just give you an example of this. So when my book was coming out 2 years ago, we had a huge launch party with about 400 people. And I was beginning to get a bit anxious that, have I overstretched myself? Would they not like it? And I said the last thing that you want to do is when you launch a book on mental health is to start getting anxiety yourself and have a manic episode just because of that. So I said, let me hack my mental health this week with these 3 things. So I had an extra session of therapy. I took some medication. I spent a lot of time with my family and the dog. I did more exercise. So I really took charge of my mental health. And a lot of families just struggle with this first part, which is the surviving part, to really take charge of their mental health. I didn't watch IPL that week, which was really, I think, the best thing I could do for my mental health. The 4 therapies to survive, I'll just go quickly through this because you can see it more in the book. But really, if you want to go from surviving to becoming an advocate, to thriving, to say, I've gone 5 years or 6 years without a manic episode, I'm really on top of my mental health now. Even if there's a trigger, I can manage it. You need a combination of, this is what worked for me, and I think everybody has to work out what combination works out for them. But for me, work was very important, being out with my colleagues and getting their support. And also just that I find work therapeutic. Spiritual therapy was very important. Very important is having a conversation with myself through journaling. And finally, just having the support of allies. So this is all talked about and much more. But these, I think, take you to a stage where you can say that you're totally aware. You have the first stage is the acceptance stage. The second stage is to say that I'm completely aware of it and I'm tackling it. So while one part of my mind thinks that it's going to win an Oscar screenplay, but now I know Tanuja, so now she'll help me do that. So the second part of my mind is saying, slow down, you need to actually write something good if you want to win an Oscar on screenplays. So you have to be able to manage that civil war in your mind, and I think it's these 4 therapies that have helped me to get to that second stage. So what I say is that I have an illness, but I am not unwell. For me, this is not a disorder at all. This is a condition. So this is about changing the narrative, which I would like to invite all of you who are professionals in the room to use this kind of terminology and change that narrative so it reduces the stigma and makes it easy for people to access help. Mental health for me is a team sport. It's really important to make those allies. I've had a lot of those. And really that happiness is a practice. For me, it's a choice and a decision, but it's something that I actively practice. If I can see myself getting unhappy about something, I need to step back, reflect, not react, not respond, not hit that send button, just wait, just exhale, and make that really a daily practice. So these are a lot of words, but yeah, this is the mission of the project, is really to change the narrative. That's why we really want this story to go out, because very often I find that doctors will give a lot of gyan, right? But patients listen to other patients, and I think even Dr. Jitendra Nagpal talked about this when he talked about how communities can help each other and how the peer-to-peer learning is so important. So just a little bit about the impact of what's happened so far. Like, we've had a TED Talk come out, an audiobook come out. It's been a bestseller. It's been shortlisted for an award. It's had a lot of social media impressions. I've done a lot of talks like this. But I think stories matter more than statistics. So rather than just me, I'm going to talk about 3 stories that have really moved me from my readers, just to show how universal mental health is and how powerful stories can be. So the person on the left is Chip Thompson. He's a middle-aged, he's a 40-something entrepreneur in the US, and he got to know of the book through a friend, and he has since become a friend. He lives with bipolar disorder. He goes through a lot of ups and downs. And he said to me that as soon as he read the book, he reached out through LinkedIn and he said, I'm reading 20 pages of your book and I feel every page is my story. And so he really resonated with him. And on the middle is a lady who's, this is a stock photo, but I got a really lovely email in Hindi from a lady from Nagpur who is a senior citizen, and she said that मेरे बेटे और मेरे husband को दोनों डिप्रेशन है. मैंने आपकी किताब जो पढ़ी थी डिक्शनरी से मदद लेकर मैंने पढ़ी थी, क्योंकि मैंने मराठी मीडियम तक पढ़ा है और मेरी इंग्लिश इतनी अच्छी नहीं है. फिर भी मेरे बेटे को इतना मेरे हस्बैंड के डिप्रेशन तो फिर भी मैनेज कर लिए, वो रिटायर हो गए, वो खुद डॉक्टर हैं, पर मेरी बेटे के लिए हम इतनी फ़िक्र है कि हम लोग पता नहीं हर दिन क्या होने वाला है, पर आपकी किताब ने हमें नई उम्मीद जगाई है. So I thought that was, thank you. And it was so moving. If you see the life of this lady and the socio-economic context of this lady and the socio-economic context of Chip Thompson, they may have nothing in common. Geography, age, the whole culture of where they come from, the demographics are totally different, but they relate. They relate to stories. And the third story is of Madhumita. She actually sent me an amazing email. She's saying, I used to be a banker with a multinational bank. I'm a single mom in my 40s. I read your book and I have actually switched my career completely because I was looking for purpose and meaning, and I have joined an NGO in Calcutta working with the homeless and the mentally ill with Ishwara Sankalpa. So she actually entirely changed her career. So these are just 3 stories. I get so many more emails and messages. Even today people have said it. And I just want to say that, of course, yes, we've had these kind of endorsements of these are the sort of people in terms of CEOs or institutes that have endorsed the book. But really, I think stories can help. And I want to share a last story as a woman. I was told by a mental health professional of mine that I shouldn't write the book because it might upset me. My husband has such a demanding job. I should support him. I should spend my time planning the children's holidays because I'm so good at doing that. And that really upset me. So I think that there is so much in the medical system itself, there can be so much patriarchy. But luckily, I went beyond that. I've written an op-ed in HT today just about that incident and about patriarchy in general. But the point is, I think as a woman, we need to have our stories coming out. So I would love to hear from you with your stories. I would love to hear how you've engaged with the book. These are some of the ways I think it can help you. And lastly, just keep in touch with me. I always reply to whichever response I get. So, love to hear.